I've been reaping what I sowed. Nigga, I ain't been outside in a minute, I've been living what I wrote.
Grief was when I was telling you when it wasn't funny no more.
You know, there's this running joke online that Tyler keeps getting happier while Earl just keeps getting sadder. And while for the most part that is true for Tyler, who has gradually shed the shock value misfit persona that defined his early career, Earl's trajectory has been more internal. His catalog is a descent into the genius that is constantly trying to brush the dirt up off the psyche.
Get up off the pavement, brush the dirt up off my psyche.
There was something odd about the future shaped by the social media age, and one cultural movement in particular stood out as a stark contrast to the usual portrayals of black suburbia. It didn't fit neatly into the two dominant archetypes that mainstream culture created for black identity, the hypermasculine figure and the assimilated Negro.
Like this young blood.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, this is Langston from Regal View.
But in came the Disruptors' Odd Future. It was really a movement that struck a strangely familiar chord for black teens who lived in the in-between.
Too black for the white kids and too white for the blacks. From on the road to cracking locks up off them bicycle racks.
Instead, they toyed with the void, expressing themselves through a kind of teenage nihilism that felt punk, absurd, and disruptive. They were off, but so were a lot of us. I'm 3 years older than Earl, but I was just as disillusioned, alienated, and raised on multisyllabic raps and Mortal Kombat fatalities. I mean, yeah, it was edgelord, but in many ways, Odd Future were punk. They embodied the spirit of 80s skate punk and MTV's golden era of Caucasian chaos. I'm talking Jackass and Beavis and Butthead, but now, transpose that energy onto black kids, recklessly self-aware and absurd to the point of satire, and, most importantly, deeply online. It was the perfect storm. YouTube was exponentially expanding its algorithms with no rhythm to be heard or felt, and social media was kicking out gatekeeper media entities, and then regular folk like me and you nerded out on Alright and 2dopeboys.com. Wait, what?
Yo, f*** 2 dope boys and Alright and any other nigga.
Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy Nugs reporting live from the TDS dungeon. If you haven't already, please sign up for my newsletter, which is really a digital magazine. It's dope. You'll find exclusive interviews, album reviews, think pieces, and carefully curated playlists, and it's all completely free. Go to www.thatdopeshift.com to sign up. Also, shout out to all my Patreon supporters for supporting my mission of bringing you obscure hip-hop topics. And speaking of Patreon, I'll be doing a live stream reaction to Earl Sweatshirt and Ghostface Killah's album tonight on Patreon only. You'll also find an active community chat on Patreon where we nerd out on rap shit. I also do vinyl vlogs to trips to the record shop, so please do sign up for Patreon and the digital magazine. It's really a way to support my mission of bringing you obscure rap pieces. I appreciate every single one of you. Now let's get back to this rap shit. Shout out to y'all. Earl's multi-syllabic rhyme schemes and off-kiltered patterns delivered in a slow, mumbled cadence were super advanced for a 16-year-old. The only other MC I can think of who was as nice as Earl close to that age is Nas on Live at the Barbecue, and he was 17. Look, it's not what he was saying at this point, it was how he was putting together 16s at 16.
Straight top of the crop shit, crushing motherfuckers like moss in a mosh pit. Dollar cent shit, since I ain't lost it. It's in a f***ing jar with guitar picks and bar spit. Bar spat, past tense, warriors of radness. Blame, get it through your brain like dad's dick.
But who is Earl Sweatshirt really? Born to Bay, host Sicily, he was the son of renowned South African poet Bra Willie and Cheryl Harris, a respected American legal scholar and professor. Raised primarily by his mother, Earl's relationship with his father was distant and strained, which, off his music alone, it was quite obvious. Bra Willie, he was a central figure in 20th century African literature and politics. A renowned South African poet, essayist, and thinker, Willie was exiled from South Africa at just 21 years old during the 1960s under apartheid.
Apartheid really began in 1948, but separating black Africans from the white minority had long been a policy aim. Laws made white people officially superior, and the large black majority faced discrimination in every aspect of their lives. Living, doing business or owning land in white areas was banned. There were separate public facilities, transport and schools. Interracial marriage was banned. Many had no right to citizenship and were regarded as aliens in major cities. Instead, they were made citizens of Bantustans, homelands scattered throughout South Africa. But resistance grew. In 1960, a huge peaceful protest against pass laws ended in a massacre at Sharpeville. 69 people were killed. The deaths galvanized opposition, radicalizing liberation movements like the ANC.
There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and nonviolence.
Once in the USA, he became a crucial bridge between African liberation movements and black arts and civil rights movements in America. And I say that to give you some perspective. At 21, Earl's father was fighting external forces like apartheid and marching against the system that caged bodies, while Earl at 21 was fighting internal forces and waging a war that nobody could see. Plus, he could perform at Coachella.
My priorities fucked up, I know it. I'm afraid I'm gonna blow it. And if expectations raise it because daddy was a poet.
On one hand, Earl's poetic brilliance was shaped by grief, disassociation, and deep self-reflection. On the other hand, his father's brilliance came through public intellectualism rooted in ideology and building solidarity across the black diaspora. They really lived two completely different lives, but they both mastered the art of expression through words. Earl grew up in a deeply intellectual household where his mother's academic work made him acutely aware of black oppression from an early age. This upbringing would leave a lasting psychological imprint, which we'll circle back to shortly. Again, his mother, Cheryl Harris, is a legal scholar and professor at UCLA's School of Law. In my research, I found out she's best known for her 1993 essay, Whiteness as Property, which helped lay the foundation for various systemic racism theories and the ugly truth of white supremacy in America. In a deeply reflective conversation with his mother, they speak on the plight of black oppression and how at times growing up for Earl, it made him apathetic and depressed knowing the history and current situation of deep-rooted black oppression.
And enslavement was both a system of labor extraction and property.
One thing that I had to overcome that I felt like was very topical for all of us at a certain age was apathy in the face of everything.
Yeah, because apathy is one of the great tools of the ruling class.
For real, figuring out their apathy, their lethargy, their frustration, depression, whatever.
To carry all that before you've even figured out who you are internally as a kid, all I can really say is ignorance is really bliss.
'Cause ignorance is bliss.
That kind of knowledge, that early exposure to pain and injustice will either do two things to you: empower you or paralyze you. For instance, I'm currently working on a piece about the Black Canadian experience and the deep-rooted misconceptions Americans have on it, and I've honestly found myself feeling straight up depressed at times. Some of the facts I've uncovered about my own hometown of Edmonton, Alberta have been unsettling. And with Earl, there's really no surprise then that his music feels less like a performance and more like a journal entry of this nigga trying to figure shit out in music time. In this video, I'm going to break down the psychological spectrum of Earl Sweatshirt's artistry, which is really just a way of tracing the internal landscapes he maps out across his catalog. Earl's career stands out because we got to see him in so many different psychological states, and it all started when he went by the name Sly Tendencies and uploaded music to MySpace. His first tape, Kitchen Cutlery, was a loose collection of tracks made between 2007 and 2009, and this is before Tyler, the creator, even entered the picture.
Like a Barack campaign ad, niggas on that sneak tip, I see you clearly through these Ray-Bans.
The sound quality was rough, like something recorded on those old microphone sticks, but even then you could hear the sharpness in his pen. His multisyllabic flows carry the influence of rappers like MF Doom, long before that became trendy to do so.
Yeah, I'm your new fetish. Rip through ciphers like rabbits chew lettuce. Young, black, fresh, you hef, you said it. Grind. I get more ass than potty holes. Had these naughty flows ever since I was a snotty nose.
And while most kids his age were bumping Lil Wayne, Earl was rapping over Doom and Mad Lib beats at 15. The intro track, for example, used an old MF Doom instrumental called Vinca Rosia. Let's roll a clip.
But I never let it free fall. I catched it and spit it. I kick shit that blows whole districts in the tidbits. With pen and fist, I take tallies. The kids bitch way go sicker than syphilis. So sisters and brothers grab a shovel, start digging this. Matter of fact,
although the tape doesn't offer much on the psyche of Earl, it did showcase his technical skills at a young age. And there are those who swear by Earl being better than Nas at 16, which I can't really call it. It's up for debate. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, most of it was mindless raps, but it showcased his advanced technical skills at a young age, and what did help me get a little into his psyche was his MySpace bio, which was archived by his cult-like following, where he prophetically says,
"I'm Sly. I'm 15. I like to write music. I've been writing for a bit. I've been spitting since like the 6th grade. I sucked ass until about 7 months ago when I hit an epiphany. I'm not quite sure exactly what it was, but it was for the better. I rap. The majority of my beats come from Luffy, who happens to be my best friend. I made my first ever recorded song with him called Wat Stacks at his house in a cramped computer room with our friend's mic in about 45 minutes. Gutter. I'm part of the Backpackers, who are a couple of adolescents with goals and shit. We are the weird motherfuckers who you hate because their style is awkward and their music is different and they don't have that same cookie cutter that you used to get dressed in the morning with. We are planning to drop a mixtape by the time school lets out in June to defecate on the summer with. I'm not a happy person. I don't like a lot of people, but people say I'm funny, so go figure. My mom is a lesbian. I don't know why I included that. I plan to drop a mixtape sometime in the near future. Kitchen Cutlery Volume 1. I have a lot of big dreams that I hope can take me places. I want to move out of my house as soon as possible and escape these damn walls. Which I will, because I have charisma out of my asshole. If you don't think so, f*** you and take a lap."
While Sly Tendencies was quietly uploading these raw doom-inspired tracks to MySpace, another young prodigy was making noise from a different creative lineage. In 2008, Tyler the Creator dropped Bastard, which was a completely self-produced, dark nihilistic and appropriately immature debut album. When Bastard dropped, I was deep in my Mobb Deep phase, from their classic shit to Prodigy's most slept on album HNIC 2. I was all in, so when I heard these eccentric suburban kids who in reality I could relate to more than Mobb Deep, it had me caught between the gritty pull of 90s gangster rap and the raw energy of new school rebellion rap. At its peak, Odd Future, short for Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All, was rumored to have up to 50 members moving through Los Angeles like this chaotic underground movement. Acts like Domo Genesis, Mike G, and the duo Mellow Hype, which consisted of Haji and Left Brain, stayed true to their niche anti-mainstream roots, but the three-headed monster of Odd Future was, without a doubt, Earl, Tyler, and Frank. By the time Earl officially stepped onto the scene, he had dropped the Sly Tendencies moniker and reintroduced himself as Earl Sweatshirt, and it was Earl, both the artist and the self-titled mixtape, that would put the spotlight on Odd Future. In fact, I would argue that it was the lore of Earl that was the catalyst for the rise of Odd Future. On July 26, 2010, he released the track Earl along with a now infamous music video, and in it, Odd Future members are seen blending a disturbing mix of mouthwash, cough syrup, herbs, and malt liquor, and who knows what else, before drinking it and spiraling into chaos. They're also doing regular teenage shit like skateboarding, breaking teeth, and tearing shit up. But beyond the shock factor, Earl's technical skills stood out. His rhyme schemes were dense, his wordplays so good at times it felt like a mockery of the colonizer's language, and as much as Earl himself will say it's cringe to look back at, his skill set was far beyond his years.
Ma said, "Wake up, son, good morning." I rolled out of bed, greeted mama with a yawn, and paused to scratch an itch and went down to the kitchen, fixed a plate of eggs and bacon, glass of OJ Simpson. Just I was about to dig in, thought jumped in my head, school was to be attended, shit. Wolf with a T-Rex cock, let's talk while I invest stock in wet rock. Smoke with all the big bitches, bumping bad rocks up in the trunk, thumping up against the dead cops. I'm popping like I tossed a match in the engine and go harder than a fucking crack intervention. Welcome back to class, bitch, grab onto your glasses. Our future leaving even niggas in past tense. Style is patent, the measures is drastic. Either that or they 4-4, some call them fantastic. She call me fantastic, I call her a fat bitch. Still kill a pussy, put the cat in the casket.
However, talent alone doesn't tell the whole story. That period in Earl's life lines up perfectly with something that psychologist Erik Erikson described, what he called the identity versus role confusion stage. It's a time in adolescence when you're making yourself, experimenting with who you are, testing boundaries, and figuring out where you fit in society. Erikson believed this stage is crucial in shaping adult identity, and Earl's early music reflects this almost perfectly.
Started thinking about a normal life. Yeah, I mean, idle, standing in the kitchen with a noose and a rifle, hang and bang, hocking movies in the Bible, dancing with the devil. Tonight's our first recital.
Erikson also talked about something called the psychosocial moratorium, which is a socially accepted break that gives young people space to experiment and figure themselves out before locking into a fixed identity. Earl the Mixtape is really an example of that phase in action. It plays like a time capsule of a teenager trying on different sweatshirts, adopting a persona that's violent, obscene, emotionally numb, or intentionally provocative. You can find themes like drug use, sexual assault, murder, and deep resentment towards authority figures all throughout the mixtape, not because they reflected his real life, but because he was pushing limits, testing reactions, and trying to stand out in a world that promoted assimilation. It was theatrical, dark, and jarring at times, exactly what you'd expect from someone searching for who they are in the midst of all the chaos. The Earl mixtape lines up with Erikson's idea that teenagers often take on extreme, even contradictory identities while figuring themselves out. Earl's use of shock value, like what we see in punk, goth, or horrorcore rap, was a kind of symbolic rebellion, a way to act out rage and give him a sense of control for the moment. Earl himself has acknowledged this. He said people basically got to watch him grow through that Eriksonian identity stage in real time. Most rappers debut as full-grown adults. Jay-Z was 26, Eminem was 24, and Rock Marciano was 32. But Earl, he was still a kid, and that came with a double edge. On one hand, it's cringeworthy to look back on from his perspective, but on the other, it gave us rare access into the mind of a black teenager trying to make sense of himself in real time, with all the scattered, impulsive, and fucked up thoughts that come with that.
You were trying to live up to somebody's idea of what your identity was versus what you truly were feeling in that moment, you know what I mean? Almost playing a role?
Maybe. I feel like maybe I was doing that, but what makes it like actually embarrassing is that you're a kid. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? So think about your like ideas about the world and kind of like what things are when you're a kid. Like my idea of being like the rapper guy then was like, let's get, you know what I mean, let's get some of these 4-syllable words in here. Let's get some of these. There's like my first beats on there that I just cannot stand right now.
What's the oldest beat on there? What's the oldest beat you made on there?
Oh my God, I'm gonna start it off with that chum.
That's nothing wrong with that.
I can't get jiggy with this shit.
That's nothing wrong with that.
I can't get jiggy with this shit. It sound like my nigga Adam Levine about to let it.
The Earl mixtape was really just Thebe trying on different sweatshirts, different identities, before he figured out what truly fit him. And this isn't just armchair psychology, research backs it up. A 2010 study in the Journal of Adolescence found that teens involved in creative subcultures like hip-hop, punk, or emo often had more identity confusion, but used those spaces to explore values and a sense of belonging. Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy Nugs reporting live from the TDS Dungeon. If you haven't already, please sign up for my newsletter, which is really a digital magazine. It's dope. You'll find exclusive interviews, album reviews, think pieces, and carefully curated playlists, and it's all completely free. Go to www.thatdopeshift.com to sign up. Also, shout out to all my Patreon supporters for supporting my mission of bringing you obscure hip-hop topics. And speaking of Patreon, I'll be doing a live stream reaction to Earl Sweatshirt and Ghostface Killah's album tonight on Patreon only. You'll also find an active community chat on Patreon where we nerd out on rap shit. I also do vinyl vlogs to trips to the record shop, so please do sign up for Patreon and the digital magazine. It's really a way to support my mission of bringing you obscure rap pieces. I appreciate every single one of you. Now let's get back to this rap shit. Shout out to y'all. And if we take it a step further and look at Earl the mixtape through Freud's model of the psyche, the ID, ego, and superego, it all starts to make even more sense. Sigmund Freud believed that the human mind is made up of these three parts, constantly in tension with each other. First, the ID can be thought of as your wild inner child, the impulsive part that wants immediate pleasure, whether it's food, sex, sleep, fun, or attention. It doesn't care about the rules, safety, or consequences. The ID is when DMX is barking on a track. Done! Or when the Migos is repeatedly flexing high-end fashion.
Versace,
On the opposite side, the superego is more like a strict inner parent or conscience. It represents the moral code we've learned from our families, community, and society. The superego is the voice that says you should be better or that's wrong, often making us feel guilt or shame. The superego is when the late great Ka provides deep introspection and wipes off the fog so your perspective is more clear.
Might be equal, but we not the same. Still absorb the loss, there's a lot to gain.
And caught in the middle is the ego, the rational part of you that tries to balance both sides. The ego is when rapper Blue is looking at each new day like a blank canvas, trying to paint something meaningful without losing his morality.
Every day is like a blank canvas, carving my initials in the planet like I branded. Handpicked to live this life we take for granted.
We will tie the superego and ego to Earl's artistry shortly, but Earl's mixtape feels overwhelmingly ID driven. Earl was 16 and his raps were pure impulse, dark, provocative, and aggressive. Freud believed the ego and superego are still developing in teenage years, which explains why youth expression is often so chaotic and boundary pushing. Early on in his career, you could see in interviews him building his sense of identity, and maybe sometimes a Freudian slip would occur as well.
A lot of people get swept away if you don't have like a strong sense of identity. That fool's the best. Like Gil Scott-Heron's kind of like my dad. He's had.
Look, the truth of the matter is, Earl's debut mixtape was unknowingly documenting what it looks like to build the self in real time. This tension between youth and the extreme isn't new in hip-hop. Take Mobb Deep, for instance, who were 16 and 17 when they recorded their debut project Juvenile Hell. While still rough around the edges, they too were forming their identity in real time. Except this was through the lens of being black and raised in the projects. Let's roll the clip.
As a young black teen, every day I deal with the pressure and mixed up is how I feel. I'm frustrated and confused, young juvenile, singing a project blues, so I choose. He has a grade 8 average, but when he's on the streets with his friends, he's a savage, a freshman in high school. So he pulled the trigger and I know when I'm glad it's finally over and I'm finally dead, and no more.
Earl Sweatshirt was cut from that same cloth. The instability of a teenage mind, this sense of searching and chaos would be the foundation of Odd Future and Earl's rise, but just as quickly as Earl appeared, he vanished. A flash of genius, if you will, and then silence. At the exact moment his Earl mixtape was turning him into a cult figure, he disappeared. No tweet, no Tumblr post, well, at least yet. He was just gone. The catalyst that helped ignite Odd Future's movement had vanished without a trace on some First 48 shit. It didn't take long for confusion to turn into mythology. Free Earl started showing up on t-shirts and message boards, conspiracy theories flew, everyone wanted to know what happened. Behind all the rumors, though, was a far more humanizing story. Earl had been sent by his mother to a reform school in Samoa called Coral Reef Academy, a therapeutic program for troubled boys. From the outside looking in, it looked like a betrayal. Why would a mother remove her son from the spotlight just as his stars were aligning? This led to Earl chants at Odd Future shows and Earl's mom t-shirts being sold like crack in '88. But Earl's mom wasn't just Earl's mom. She was a brilliant legal scholar who had spent her life studying how institutions fail black youth. She knew what could happen to a young black boy caught in the whirlwind of fame, chaos, and internet cosigns. You see, there was no father figure around, and Earl was 16, surrounded by a scene that thrived on shock value and had zero guardrails. So in reality, she saw what most fans didn't care to acknowledge: reckless behavior, emotional instability, and a crowd that uses negative energy as a way to get hyped up. While Earl was MIA, she did a piece with The New Yorker, which featured Earl as well, and in a lot of ways she humanized Earl by saying, end quote, "There is a person named Tebey who pre-existed Earl. That person ought to be allowed to explore and grow." Coral Reef Academy had no internet, mandatory therapy, and days filled with chores and self-reflection. There were the behavioral kids and the drug kids. I was both. But while Earl was away, the lore of him only grew. The silence only amplified his legend. Forums lit up with rare photos, rumors, and just overall wild speculation. When Complex finally tracked him down and The New Yorker confirmed the story, most were just happy he was good. He hadn't released a word, let alone music, but that silence was arguably louder than the whole Odd Future movement combined. But if you were active on message boards, then you knew that the stands were on his mom's head. While fans were yelling "F Earl's mom" at shows, Earl himself was starting to see the bigger picture. In a rare Tumblr post, he wrote, "I just inspired a widespread movement of people who are dedicated to the downfall of my mom." But hindsight is 2020, and looking back, it's clear his mother didn't silence him, she preserved him. It was his first real act of psychological resistance.
So did your parents attempt to pull you away from this shit failed?
No, that's not it at all.
What was the point of it
This
then?
is totally, motherfuckers think like my mom heard a song and was like,
yes,
no.
That is definitely what we think.
Nah,
Yes.
I'm not fucking with this song.
So straighten it out. Yes, because that is the perception.
I was fucking up.
You were doing other things.
Yeah, I was fucking up. Like outside of it, like music aside from everything, I was fucking up.
Like just doing not cool stuff.
Yeah.
And do you feel that in those regards you're better off than you were when you left?
Most definitely.
So you feel ready to go?
For 2 years, Earl stayed quiet while Odd Future exploded, shaping a whole new generation of rebellious internet-fueled hip-hop. And when he finally came back, it was clear he had changed. His psyche had shifted, and one thing was certain: Earl's return was one of the most anticipated comebacks in underground rap history. And even though he was now signed to Columbia Records, a major label, it didn't feel like a corporate rebrand. It was quiet, subtle. In early 2012, he dropped a cryptic new track called Home, ending with just 3 words.
Self-loathing narcissist, spitting crowbars to the back window of cars and shit.
And I'm back.
Shortly after, his first appearance would be on Oldie from the Odd Future Tape Volume 2 in one of the most memorable ciphers of the blog era.
Since I made it back to Fahrenheit, grimy, get the narrow type, barrel, ill apparel, wearing pack of parasite. Never dollars, pop and make it rain, hockey pucks, 60 data ships, you fucking awesome anonymous.
Throughout mid-2012, Earl made appearances on tracks with Casey Veggies and Frank Ocean, re-entering the Odd Future orbit slowly. His time in Samoa had forced him to reckon with who he really is, separate from Odd Future, separate from the Earl persona. Where you really saw a psychological shift and invitation into Earl's psyche would be on his debut album, Doris, released in 2013, named after his grandmother, which we'll circle back to shortly. The lead single, Chum, features a simple piano beat, dusty drums, and an invitation into the mind of a kid trying to figure shit out. Let's roll the clip.
It's probably been 12 years since my father left me fatherless, and I just used to say I hate him in dishonest jest.
Mama often was offering peace, offering stink, wheeze, cough, scoffing, and he's off again.
This line captures Earl's disassociation in music time, the split between what he feels internally and what he allows himself to express externally.
When honestly I miss this nigga like when I was 6, and every time I got the chance to say it, I would swallow it.
This really captures the deep wound of abandonment that was messing with Earl's brain. Through a Freudian lens, Earl's expression of these feelings is complicated by the superego, which embodies the internalized rules and societal expectations we live by. At the core of Doris, and especially in the lead single Chum, Earl is navigating disassociation, in my opinion. That sense of being detached from your own feelings, almost like you're watching yourself move through life rather than actually living it.
More than they were before all of this shit. Been back a week and I already feel like calling it quits. Something sinister to it.
He raps about abandonment, his strained relationship with his father, and the alienation he felt coming back from Samoa, but he rarely sits in those emotions head on. Instead, he circles them with irony, fragmented memories, and deflection.
I'm indecisive, I'm scatterbrained, and I'm frightened at 7, and in them eyes where he hiding all the icicles at. Chicken shit. Temper about as thick as tips of pencils is, missiles to the picket fence. Eating like the kids when you take them off, riddling, throwing temper tantrums at the window where you whip again. 4 logos down a hole in a loaded split, and who was useless is a broken wrist from trying to open shit. 99 problems all gone in that one joint, and that neck gold froze like he held it at gunpoint.
He masks longing for an absent father with either sarcasm or hostility, creating a distance between his raw emotion and his presentation. It's textbook case of superego suppressing the ID's unfiltered desire.
Like to send a shout to the fathers that didn't raise us, to every old hated now unable to say much.
On Doris, Earl, in my opinion, is rapping through the filter of disassociation. At the same time, his ego is left scrambling, trying to reconcile these conflicting drives with the external pressures of fame and family.
What's up?
Why you so depressed and sad all the time like a little bitch?
Grandma's passing, but I'm too busy trying to get this fucking album cracked.
That line would foreshadow his album Solace, which in part deals with the grief of losing his grandmother, which we'll get into shortly.
In the midst of a tornado, misfitted, I'm Clark Gable, I'm not stable. Abrasive as
In my opinion, when Doris dropped, even if Earl might not see it that way, in hindsight, the album genuinely lived up to the hype and lore that surrounded it. At just 19, his pen was so sharp it felt like we were witnessing another Nas or Prodigy, one who didn't just show promise but fully delivered on it with bars like the following.
Desolate testaments trying to stay Jekyll-ish, but most niggas hide and Brenda just stayed pregnant.
Still, Earl was Odd Future to the core, and Tyler wasn't about to let him spiral too far in his own head. On tracks like Whoa, Tyler reminded Earl and everyone else why they fucked with him in the first place, not just for the pain, but for their wit, irreverence, and the raw genius that made his darkness more charismatic than just bleak.
Thing cause you made chum and got all personal that niggas won't go back to that old 2010 shit.
Grab mittens who have to spit blizzard, it's actually flick cigarette ash shit, bitch. Niggas harassment, 8 nickel.
And in that sense, Tyler kind of reeled them back in. He recentered Earl's identity in the chaos of their world, kind of giving him a nudge to balance introspection with the same unfiltered energy that put him on the map in the first place. Earl's return with Doris also coincided with Odd Future's collective sketch comedy show Loiter Squad on Adult Swim. The show was part Chappelle's Show, part Jackass, and it captured the chaotic and comedic brilliance of a 20-year-old's imagination. Let's roll the clip.
Our next guest has a surprising phobia that's gonna pop your bubble. Now, Dave here has a phobia of soda being inside of a cup.
Psychologically, it made sense. These were teens and early 20-somethings processing fame, trauma, and identity through comedy, just like they did with rap. For Earl in particular, it was a reminder that while he carried a heavy emotional weight in his lyrics, he was still a young nigga trying to find balance between cynicism and joy. Some of the most memorable sketches involved Earl as the main character, like his Beyond Scared Straight parody where he hilariously mocks degenerate teen behavior with eerie accuracy, essentially holding a mirror up to a generation raised on dysfunction and bravado.
Alright. So what y'all little ass in here for? Me? Yeah, everything's so funny until you see what happened to a real in jail. This
Then there's the infamous Joe Budden sketch, a scathing and surreal roast so precise it struck a nerve with Joe Budden in real life. The episode became a viral meme, and Budden has publicly expressed his distaste for it years later.
Y'all know I love my wife booty, but she can be a real sometimes.
The fact that Buttons still holds a grudge only adds to the comedy and reveals how sharp the satire actually was. Earl's presence in these sketches showed another layer of his brilliance. Beneath that deadpan delivery was a cutting insight into ego, culture, and generational absurdity. Here's how Earl's next album, I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside, came about.
Kind of started as a joke, like the title and shit. Like, I just thought about, like, where am I at this point in my life? I broke up with my girl and shit. I don't like anything. I don't ever go outside. Me and another one of the homies that just broke up with his girl, we set up a studio at my crib and shit. Just, like, dodged our apartment. We just, like, took that shit down.
Anhedonia is the deepest depths of sadness. It's the clinical inability to feel pleasure. It basically flattens life. The music that used to move you doesn't even make you flinch. Food becomes bland, friends feel distance, even your own passions, the things that once made you feel alive, lose all meaning. You're not even crying, you're just there. And if it's one album that embodies the experience of Anhedonia, it's Earl Sweatshirt's I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. There's no desire for comfort here, no hope for a call, no wish for reconnection. It's total withdrawal. Clinically, that's social isolation, a key behavioral symptom of anhedonia. He also raps to the myth of capitalist joy, the idea that fulfillment can be bought, that pain can be fixed with purchases. Then there's Grief, the emotional core of the album. Earl once said that there was nothing fun about making it because he was really living what he wrote. I also find it odd that he uses the word good grief because it's a paradox. There's nothing good about grief when it hits you, and him not being outside carries on that theme of isolation and solitude.
He's hopeless. Listen to that music, Chuck. Doesn't that do something to you? Listen.
Good grief. When it's harmful where you going, and a part of you that know it don't give a f. Pardon me for going into details.
That's passive nihilism. He's aware of the damage and doesn't care. It's the clinical detachment that happens when, even after your survival instincts go quiet.
Focus on my chat ain't as frantic as my thoughts. Lately I've been panicking a lot, feeling like I'm stranded in a mob, scrambling for Xanax out the cannons to the pop, never getting out of hand, steady handling my job, time damaging my ties. Who turn to get up, get through, turn it in a quick, you circus niggas.
Yet amid that numbness, there's also panic. Anxiety and anhedonia often coexist. One floods the nervous system while the other shuts it down. What makes I Don't Like Shit so impactful is Earl isn't trying to be understood. He's barely trying at all. The album is stripped of ego and pretense.
Love him from my father ain't my motherfucking friend. Trying to figure how to start a motherfucking end.
That last bar, trying to figure out how to start and end, speaks to Earl's trauma from the bar before it, talking about his father not being his friend, the end being emotional deadness. Yungian psychology. It comes from Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist who you probably heard in your intro psychology class in college. He split from Freud's construct and built his own ideas. He believed we all wear a persona, the mask we show to others, but behind that is our shadow, made up of feelings, memories, and parts of ourselves we try to ignore or bury. Think of it like the stuff you keep in the basement because you don't want to deal with it. Individuation is the process of becoming whole. It's when you stop running from those hidden parts and start facing them head on. In Earl's case, some rap songs is him peeling back that mask, dealing with depression, grief, family, and trying to put all those pieces of himself together. It's messy and raw because real growth actually is. And oh yeah, he's actually rapping his ass off.
Kept the truth in my palm and my chest. See it through, keep a hanging off of my neck. We got the juice. I say goodbye to my openness. Total eclipse of my shine that I've grown to miss from holding shit in.
Some rap songs marks a psychological turning point for Earl Sweatshirt. Using the lens of Jungian psychology, the album can be understood as a process of individuation, the integration of all fragmented parts of the self. Earl the artist and Tebey the person begin to merge here as he strips away the persona and confronts depression head on.
Open my lids, my eyes say my soul is a mist. The signs say we close to the end. I think I spent most of my life depressed. Only thing on my mind was that didn't know my time was next.
Whereas his earlier projects, he was in the midst of deep darkness, this felt more like him analyzing it while maybe still feeling the blues. The death of Earl's father, South African poet Bra Willie, becomes the emotional center of the album. In Jungian terms, the loss of the father often triggers individuation, and it forces one to reckon with the legacy, absence, and becoming your own person. Tracks like Peanuts are raw and stripped down, not just in sound, but in emotional exposure.
Flushing through the pain, depression, this is not a phase. Picking out his grave, saying, bless my pops, she sent him off and not an hour late. Bless my still in shock and out my heart out, somewhere on the range.
The disjointed loops and brief song structures reflect a fractured psyche, memory fragments playing on repeat. Earl closes some rap songs with clear intention and a deep sense of legacy. The final track, Riot, is a bright, wordless tribute to his late uncle, South African jazz legend Hugh Masekela, a close friend of his father, Bra Willie, and a full-circle moment for black arts, if you will. Earl Sweatshirt's Solace aligns with what some refer to as melancholic depression, a form of major depressive disorder marked by emotional paralysis, slowed cognition, and a profound sense of hopelessness. In other words, you're basically dead inside. Released quietly 2 years after the passing of his grandmother, and just after I Don't Like Shit, the 10-minute EP plays like a deeply personal journal entry.
I spit mental was caged. See, I ain't been to prison, but the feeling's the same. Share sentiment, winning if the pen hit the page. Try and make some sense of all this shit in my brain. One foot stuck in a tar pit of my ways.
It's not even on DSPs, and it was released on an obscure burner channel of Earl's called Darkness, and it opens up with him caught in a depression storm, capturing the all-consuming weight of grief and numbness that follows a major loss. The whole extended play feels so deeply personal, it feels like you're eavesdropping when you shouldn't be, but that's what sets Earl apart to me. He turns pain into sonic blues.
It's me and my nibbling conscience. Nigga, I'm fixing to give up. I've been alone for the longest.
Earl admits to not showering, staying high to numb himself, and isolating, all classic symptoms of good grief. The emotional flatness in his voice reflects disassociation, where the pain is too overwhelming to process, so it's flattened into a numb monotone detachment.
I hope it's a monsoon, my face in the sink. I'm seeing my mom soon, I faded, I stink.
As Solace progresses, Earl sinks deeper into rumination, circling thoughts of death, addiction, and lost purpose. There's no narrative arc or recovery, just a loop like a Uncle Al sample.
To tell the truth, I got a problem with eating. I be drugging. To tell the truth, I'm not supposed to be off it. But time waits for no man, and death waits with cold hands. I'm the youngest old man.
By part 4, Earl is hyper-specific, naming his grandmother and describing the moments that haunt him, embodying complicated grief where mourning blends into identity loss and emotional distress.
I got my grandmama hands. I start to cry when I see them, cause they remind me of seeing it. These the times that I need it the most, cause I feel defeated. And I buy nothing by myself, my second thoughts, my second.
The production mirrors this mental state, slow dragging piano chords that stretch time, while the hollow instrumentation in part 2 feels like depression in sonic form. Following the emotional fog of some rap songs, Earl's next 2 projects, Feet of Clay and Sick, emerge not from isolation by choice, but isolation by virus. While I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside captured Earl's self-imposed withdrawal, these 2 releases were dropped during a time when the whole world was forced indoors. The difference now is that Earl isn't running. On the album Sick, the track Tabula Rasa feels like a personal checkpoint.
I know what's real even
with Clay, he opens the song East with a controlled burst.
Double back when you got it made, 30 racks of weed, no fat in the collard greens. Finish and miss my pop dukes might just hit me, depending how I play my cards, the wind whisper to me.
He's candid about the tension, the contrast between external calm and the internal struggle, but he's not suppressing it, he's pacing himself, no longer urgently spilling emotion, but managing it. On Voir Dire, Earl Sweatshirt doesn't rap like someone trying to escape his past, he raps like someone who's digesting it fully. Now a father, he's revisiting trauma with less bitterness and more recognition. This is the essence of post-traumatic growth, not pretending it didn't hurt, but using it as a compost for something new.
Hold your head, cover your face, so disease doesn't spread. She said I got a son on the way.
On Voir Dire, it felt like Earl stopped going to war with himself and maybe the world too.
Made my bed, so that's where I'ma lay my worry bones. My heavy head I carry home every day.
Earl's latest project, Live, Laugh, Love, feels like the natural next step in the evolution of his psyche. There will always likely be a shade of melancholy tied to his aura and music, but this time it seems like Earl has come to terms with the hand that he's been dealt, choosing instead to live, laugh, love.
Worked harder than a bitch, operating a tight ship, God steering the ship. Everybody wanna be Bowser, I'm plumbing the seat out, fire come to me now. Things changed, so a nigga stayed improvising, keep my feet grinding for my sweet child. Struggle not a team sport, you're not afforded recourse. Of course I had to rewrite, taking the signs and facing a fire. Been here before, it's been a minute. Familiar with it all, it's blown chillin' in a bar for good riddance. Give my baby my daddy last name and his likeness.
His recent works carries the sense that he now sees life as a game of chess, one that requires constant adjustment and strategy, yet through it all, his humor remains intact. Take the music video for Crisco, for example. The story revolves around Earl's refusal to perform at his own album release party. As a sly act of comedic rebellion against his label, he secretly films auditions to cast someone to play Earl in his place. The role ultimately goes to a man who looks nothing like him, but still, once they threw him in Supreme, handed him some inspiration and a microphone, the performance was set and the rest became history. Look, the truth of the matter is, people often forget Earl was a kid when the world first heard what he had to say, and we were able to eavesdrop on the psyche from his youth to fatherhood. And at first it seemed like all Earl wanted to do was dodge the demons, and the funny thing about it is now, he's dapping them up and keeping it pushing. I go by the name of Nugs, and this is that dope shift. Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy Nugs reporting live from the TDS Dungeon. If you haven't already, please sign up for my newsletter, which is really a digital magazine. It's dope. You'll find exclusive interviews, album reviews, think pieces, and carefully curated playlists, and it's all completely free. Go to www.thatdopeshift.com to sign up. Also, shout out to all my Patreon supporters for supporting my mission of bringing you obscure hip-hop topics. And speaking of Patreon, I'll be doing a live stream reaction to Earl Sweatshirt and Ghostface Killah's album tonight on Patreon only. You'll also find an active community chat on Patreon where we nerd out on rap shit. I also do vinyl vlogs to trips to the record shop, so please do sign up for Patreon and the digital magazine. It's really a way to support my mission of bringing you obscure rap pieces. I appreciate every single one of you. Now let's get back to this rap shit. Shout out to y'all.